Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition. Today we're going to talk about what we're learning from Baby Yoda. I talked a little bit more in depth on this on my Twitch channel and the link is below. It's in a very soft launch right now, so be kind. I'm working through some technical difficulties. So, Baby Yoda. Now, whether you watch The Mandalorian or you don't watch The Mandalorian, pretty much everyone knows what Baby Yoda is. So he's pretty much been a very one-dimensional character, and now they're sort of bringing him in to have a little more backstory, a little more human type of emotions, and that has made the character a little more interesting. It made me look at what we can learn from him. So this week they got into his attachments, and they went a little bit farther with that by saying that it was sort of closing him off to different timelines he could have, different futures he could have because of his attachments. So it made me think about our attachments, because attachments are a very human thing, a very ego-human thing. And if you wonder if you have an attachment, here's how you know. If you put something on a pedestal, then you're attached to it. You have taken one thing, usually it's a person, and we have put it on a pedestal and we say, okay, well, that thing is more important than this thing. Like for that thing, I'll compromise, I will put up with a lot of perhaps disrespect. It might not even be a lot of disrespect, but you'll just put up with more from that thing because you put it on a pedestal. It's more than something else. So you have an attachment to it in some way and you put it on a pedestal. And that is where the human gets into trouble in a sense, because now it will compromise for it. It will go smaller for it. Sometimes kind of dims its light. It'll not be as big and bright as it could be because we now deem that as something over something else. Now, the soul doesn't see anything over something else. Everything is the same in a sense. It loves every soul the same. It doesn't have attachment to anything. And the minute I say that, I'll get a lot of people will say, well, we're supposed to love people and have attachments. That's a good thing. And it's not that you're saying you don't love them. You clear the attachment to something and you love them from a much deeper place, a much purer place. Because it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter if they don't act the way you want them to or they don't do what you want them to. You still love them from that very deep place. But you don't put them as more than someone else. And if it's disrespectful, you'll close the reality on it, and it doesn't matter how much you're human, it meant to your human aspect of you. Because it wasn't kind to stay in a reality where you feel like you're being disrespected. Now, I'll see this a lot with partners of people or parents of people, where people will put up with a lot of behavior that might be disrespectful, because it's their mother or it's their father or it's their husband or their wife. It doesn't really matter the role that soul is playing for you, but you've assigned it a role that kind of gives it a pass. So if you're giving anybody a pass, look at how that could be hampering other timelines, other opportunities you could be having because you're staying in the energy of that. And once you can clear the attachment to those things, and that person or those persons, then you can really get into loving them from a pure place. It doesn't matter if they're here or not. It doesn't matter if they're here. It doesn't matter if they're not in your life. If they're here, it's just a bonus, but you don't need them to be here. You don't need them to be happy. You don't need them to feel safe. You don't need them to provide anything in a sense. But if they're there, it's great. If they're not there, that's okay too. You know, if they're going off to do something else in their soul journey, the soul respects that. The soul understands that. The soul is not trying to hold that person really tight and not let him go. Or put a lot of guilt on that person for going or wanting to do something else. Then you get into a lot of that manipulation energy that has to do with the same thing. Now, they've just kind of touched on a little bit with Baby Yoda being attached to the Mandalorian and how that you're starting to see how that's starting to affect out different timelines that or opportunities he might have. And even though a lot of people might say, but it's the love of like a father and a son kind of thing, it still has entanglements to it. and they're still affecting the behavior of the other person and affecting what that person can do. So if you have something that affects how you act, affects what you do, look at why you've put it on a pedestal. Look at why you're attached to it. Because there's something you need from it. We play in those things, we play in those timelines because we need something from that person that we're not getting ourselves, or they wouldn't be on a pedestal. There would be no hierarchy there. I will always say, if that person you put on the pedestal it does something, does that then mean that if a person on the street, a stranger, did the same thing, you would think it was okay? Pretty much 9 times out of 10, they will say, well, no, I wouldn't put up with that same type of thing from some stranger on the street, but this is different. Because we've made it different. We've assigned it as different. We've assigned this person is more. So look at where you've assigned something as more. Look at why you've assigned something as more important than something else. Remember, the soul does not see anything more important than something else. It's all the same to it. It doesn't play sides. It doesn't say this over that. Winning or losing, there's none of that. It's love or it's not love. It's pure or it's not pure. But the minute you can love someone without the attachment of that thing having to do what you want it to do, because remember, with attachments, it's still something you want from that person. You want something you want them to do. And if they don't do it, look how you feel. Look at the expectations you have around that. Look at the cords. Look at the manipulation energy in the whole thing. Look how distorted it can become. It might not start off that way. In a way, it is always distorted, but you might not see it as distorted. It might look like it's pure, but when you get deeper in, when it starts hampering what you might go do, when you start changing behavior because of what might happen if you do that thing, because of that person, that's when you gotta take a look at it. It might not be the time to change it. You might just want to acknowledge it's there and work on it later. You have to see where you are with it, what you're ready to do with it, because sometimes we're just not ready to do that yet. So look at our attachments and keep practicing the art of intuition.